Just a quick disclaimer. I'm not using a script for this video. I'm trying to experiment with a little more freeform video style. And I didn't think the Nioh 3 demo really warranted like a bunch of time spent writing a script and, doing all of this, whatever. Not that my editing is crazy in depth, but whatever. Point is, I just kind of wanted to talk about the Nioh 3 demo and my experience with it. Because I was a little surprised by some of the stuff that I hadn't played the alpha. I actually didn't even realize there was an alpha. But so this is kind of like my first time getting a chance to sort of dig into these new systems. The stance switching thing, having ninjutsu built into the ninja mode, how they changed Onimo and all of the Guardian Spirit, not Guardian Spirits, but whatever, like what they've done with burst counters and not just burst counters, what am I thinking of? The yokai, like the yokai abilities. Because they're still in the game, but they're tied to like your Guardian Spirit now, I think. I don't really fully understand how everything works. I'm starting to ramble more than I anticipated. But anyways, the point is, right, the game is very different. And one of the things that struck me almost immediately was that Nioh 2 was this like really refined version of Nioh 1. It took all of the things that worked really well about Nioh 1 and it said, okay, how can we make all of this stuff work better, work a little bit more sort of in harmony, like working together. And I think Nioh 3 feels to me much more like they realized that system worked really well, but it was time to try and do like different stuff. And I don't know for sure that like Nioh 3 is going to end up being a better game than Nioh 2, but I like that there's a bunch of new stuff. I like how they're trying to emphasize this like dual weapon stuff where it's like your stance switching is locked into these two different weapons, and now and like there's more restrictions, right? Like, having stuff like Kusarigama and the Tonfas not able to be in samurai stance kind of sucks, right? Because you don't have like there's no 3 stance skill tree for them. Like there's still a skill, like the skill trees are it seems like they're somewhat in depth, but the button inputs are kind of wonky. And I'm sure this is just something we can kind of adjust with as time as like a player base. But I do think there's going to be this period of I don't know, growing period or discomfort or whatever as people sort of grapple with how much the game is different. And there's still a lot that's the same, but all of the new stuff all at once. I mean, I spent so I'm not sure even how many deaths due to trying to use my old Nioh 2 button inputs for Nioh 3. Having to work through that muscle memory of like, God, I don't even know, close to like 1,000 hours. So there's just gonna be like some awkwardness. How they've sort of consolidated this gameplay system, making it so that there is a little bit more structure. You have 2 weapons before, like, okay, so like the 2 weapon system, you could always use 2 weapons in Nioh 2. And I think like the best players, the best builds, they leveraged having the ability to use 2 weapons, to have these, 2 different skill sets or tool sets or whatever, to deal with different threats and have like a really efficient gameplay style. It just wasn't necessary in Nioh 2. You could do it, but you could also do it, you could play the game and just like not have it be a big deal. There is a little bit of like the developers forcing specific gameplay styles, because I think it's really easy now to work in a dual weapon gameplay style. And I know you can separate the burst counter from the weapon switch. I actually kind of like having them tied together. It's sort of, like I said, it feels like I'm being incentivized to switch weapons. And I liked how like there was one, I think it was in like the Crucible, whatever, the castle area towards the end of the demo. And it was that last boss fight. Can't remember her name. I'll play it on the screen. She has like a burst counter attack that I would start in, I think with my Odachi, and I would get like a nice combo in, then switch to, do the burst counter switch into my Tonfas where I could get a charged R2, and then I'd have enough spirit, I think it's spirit gauge, or God, I don't remember the names of any of the stuff. But whatever they replaced the anima with. And I'd have enough of that to use my spirit ability, which would basically take me out of, do like a backflip, and I'd be safe from whatever reprisals. And it was this really super reliable combat loop and it involved 2 different weapons, and it felt, I mean, it wasn't like super stylish or flashy, but it was kind of cool, right? It was something that's natural I kind of stumbled upon. And this kind of thing is not happening in Nioh 2. Like for everything that Nioh 2 does well, I think really incentivizing this dual weapon gameplay style, something that Nioh 3 clearly just like right from the get-go does a great job of. I also like how they changed burst counters. As cool as, and I mean, it seems like there's more. Just from the demo, it seems like you just have the 1 burst counter, but there may be more. But at least from the one that you start with, not having to worry about like, okay, I want to do this Guardian Spirit, but it has Brute or it has Feral or Phantom. Like, it was just like another layer on the build crafting. It's just kind of annoying. And I like the simplifying this down, making it be like, okay, this is this really integral part of the combat loop. It's always going to behave the same way. I think there's something to be said for having some consistency there. I think some of the friction with Nioh 2 is like your experience with a boss may be completely different if you have the Phantom burst counter versus like the Feral burst counter, or like, Brute, right? Brute, which is like, as long as you have the time to get it off. But again, I mean, even with Brute, right? Like there's plenty of bosses where there's not enough time to get that Brute burst counter off, and you're way better off having like Phantom, but then you could have switched to Guardian Spirits, and I mean, it's doable, right? But it's like, this is removing some unnecessary friction, because I think like everything that Team Ninja can do to emphasize this game's combat loop and, really highlight what this game does best, what this game series does best, can really drive a lot of new players to it. So I think there's something great here. You kind of got to dig through all the crap around it to get there. So I can't believe I talked for this long. I haven't really addressed the open world. The open world, obviously, it's a huge change. It's also kind of not. It's weird. Not having to go to the overworld and be like, I'm gonna select this mission, and just being able to like wander around, kill some stuff, find some points of interact, whatever that POIs, whatever the hell these things are called. Points of interactivity, is that whatever, doesn't matter. Random objectives on the map, the Ubisoft thing, right? There's like collectibles and there's enemy bases to kill, and it's all pretty basic random bullshit. I didn't play Rise of the Ronin, but it sounds like Rise of the Ronin did a lot of this stuff too. It's not, if you're expecting, Elden Ring style open world, like that's just super not what's here. It's actually, weirdly enough, it reminds me a lot of like Diablo 4's open world, where it's not really, it's like these really narrow pathways that at some points open up into wider areas, but for the most part, it's just kind of, it's pretty linear. It's just, there's a lot of linear paths to take. And you can go in different places, but you're always basically, it's like the Dark Souls 2 thing, right? Where it's like, there's lots of weird places to go in Dark Souls 2, but it's always going to be a straight line, right? And this isn't, it's not exactly, I mean, there's backtracking and stuff like that, but it doesn't really have you don't get the wide open, expansive open world feel. But I also think, consolidating all of the content, making it really, like, you don't have to run very far between, random like encampments and mobs. And there's one point where it was like, I did a quest, and then literally right over on the other side of the hill is Mizuki, just kind of trolling around. And I died to Mizuki a bunch of times to get the soul core. The way that's changed is weird, on a just tangent. Throwing the Mizuki soul core at one of the bosses was awesome, because I was like, I don't read anything apparently, so I just chucked it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit this. I want to use this. I finally picked this thing up, right? And just seeing Mizuki pop up and just smack something, it was awesome. Having the open world change the game so that you don't have to select the side content. The side content is just sort of like organically presented to you as you explore the world, as you engage in the game's combat system. I think it makes for a much more like fluid gameplay. And I do think there's like downsides to it. I mean, like the side missions were a lot of reused assets and stuff, but there was some kind of cool, unique stuff. And I don't know that you're gonna lose some stuff from the transition to open world. Part of what you get from pushing all of the side content into this sort of persistent world where the main content also exists is there's a really nice like back and forth fluidity to it. So where before you'd have to like interrupt the gameplay flow, go and do the side content, then go back and do a main mission, then progress the story. It still happens, but it happens without loading screens. And what that does for just like, because again, like we don't play these games for the story. I don't know, maybe some people do. I like Japanese history. This is not a good way to learn, at least like Sengoku era Japanese history. It gets terrible. Whatever. That's not the point. Point is, there's a reason we play the games. We play the games because the combat's awesome, right? And I think just reworking the world design to make it so that you spend as much time as possible fighting shit is a really smart idea. And that's the best thing that the open world does. There's definitely problems with it. There's like a Ubisoft kind of, you know, like I said, go to the, and I don't, points of interest. They're called points of interest. Can't believe I forgot that. You go from point of interest to point of interest. There's lots of random Ubisoft comments to it, right? But it works because I think ultimately what you're doing is engaging in this game's combat system, and it's hard to make that boring. You know, it could be better, but I kind of like it for what it is. The other thing, the balance in the demo was totally wonky. The tonfas are like crazy broken. I imagine some of this stuff will be fixed. And ninja stance, especially early on in the game, even when you have like stance switching for samurai and deflections, being able to have that much mobility, because you've got the double dash, right? But then there's also and again, I've totally messed up my control scheme is like going to be completely different, or maybe not completely different, but a lot different from everybody else's. For me, it's triangle. After an attack, if you hit triangle, you do a little like dodge forward. The tonfas had something that actually improved the iframes on that. So I had that, and I would attack, do the dodge forward, double dash forward, and I mean honestly that's overkill because I would like get myself out of position, but just the amount of mobility that you have in ninja stance is crazy. And the built-in ninjutsu is, dude, I didn't really mess with ninjutsu in Nioh 1 and Nioh 2. I liked the Onimo magic. At least, you know, at first I was sitting there abusing sloth with all that shit, but eventually I just like, you know, all the crazy buffs that you can get from Onimo. So I never really messed with ninjutsu, and having it so you don't have to, it's not like I don't need to ready ninjutsu magic. Like it's there, and I build up the charges through the combat. So you always have kunai, you always have shurikens. They added this new, it's almost like Mistraven from Sekiro. Where, you know, if you time it right, the boss attacks you while you're in the animation, then you like teleport behind them, and you're in ninjutsu stance, right? So you're doing double damage. Like it's crazy powerful. There's some really good stuff with ninjutsu, and again, like I said, the balance is kind of weird. I imagine this stuff will be tweaked over time, if not outright when the game is released. It's probably going to be a day one patch. But the changes to ninjutsu, making it this sort of, I don't want to say core, because I think at some point, maybe it's because I was getting really powerful, at least relative to the enemies that I was fighting, but I wasn't really using ninjutsu too much until I got to the bosses. But I think having that tool for really strong stuff to be like, okay, I know I can use whatever ninjutsu stuff, and I'm going to use it against these strongest bosses because I need to use it, and it's not locked behind a finite amount of consumables. Anyways, ninjutsu is really awesome. Samurai stance is also really cool. I don't mean to sit here and you know, shit talk samurai stance. I think it's really good as well. I just think it needs a little bit more. You need to invest in it more. You need to unlock all the various stances. You know, you need to unlock deflections, and I do think this is another thing where the control scheme is weird. Like this may just be a me thing, but I ended up having to, I think I used control scheme E, and then I did some tweaking on my own, and I switched the stance, like the button that activates stance switching moved from square to triangle, and that felt a little bit better for me for doing like EI draws and the Odachi quick draw, or whatever the hell that is. But it's still pretty awkward. I ended up switching my stances to all of the triggers, so it's R1, so R1 is medium stance, L2 was light, and then R2 was heavy stance. It's a lot of button inputs, it's a lot of stuff to manage. Sometimes I would do the samurai stance inputs in ninjutsu stance, vice versa, same thing, right? It's the biggest problem that I have with the game so far is how, I'm reluctant to say clunky, they just feel bloated, right? Like it's awesome to have all of these tools, it's awesome to have all of this combat depth, but it's also striking, like, dude, this is gonna be, like, if you've never played Nioh before, you're probably just gonna use ninjutsu stance, because it simplifies the combat systems. It's powerful. It allows you to reliably, you know, do damage inside of those damage windows when the bosses are staggered or whatever, right? So, and that's fine. Like, I think that's okay. But I do think, like, I wonder how, like, what does this look like in the mid game? What does this look like in the end game? And then how does it change throughout the DLC and stuff? Like, it'll be interesting to see how Team Ninja navigates balancing these two stances, because it does seem like there's something of an imbalance right now. Enemy variety, I think, is really good. It's actually pretty shocking, especially because, like, it's so bad in Nioh 1, and then it became really good in Nioh 2. I think it was kind of iffy in Nioh 2 at times, but with the DLC and all that stuff, I think it became really good, especially by the time you were doing the Abyss and the Depths and stuff. But this game just sort of piles on up. There's like a lot of new yokai, old guys, you know, there's old stuff that's making its return. But I think, for the most part, the enemy variety is really good. I think it was some of the archetypes. I mean, you know, it's one thing to have a bunch of different colored enemies, right? And you're like, oh, we have enemy variety because we have 3 different guys that all have axes, but they're, you know, they're different types of humanoid or some shit, right? I don't think that's really what's going on here. I think there's like, you know, there was like a claw yokai. There was the regular yokais with axes. You know, there was these new guys that have these little horns on their heads, flying little bee yokai. Like, it was interesting. You know, and I thought like a decent mix of regular human enemies, you know, to sort of add even more variety to the yokai. You know, this video is probably way too long, but I do want to end it with saying I think this game is going to be really good. I think it may not start out amazing. I think it's going to be good. I think that the baseline floor is good to very good. But I think it's going to be tough for new players. It'll be interesting to see where balance stands. Regular enemies felt pretty easy to kill. Some of the bosses were hard, but I don't know, dude. I'm not amazing at Nioh. I've always struggled with these games' bosses. So it'll be interesting to see how newcomers to the series, especially if people who haven't played Nioh 1 or Nioh 2 at all, it'll be interesting to see what their reaction is to everything. But I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm really excited for it. I'm gonna have some more thoughts about Nioh. I kind of wanted to have a video talking about, trying to explain kind of what Nioh is, but I played the Nioh 3 demo and realized that I needed to rewrite sections of that video, because I think what we understand Nioh to be is going to change fairly significantly, and I think that there's going to be a pretty big, like, demarcation between Nioh 1 and 2 and Nioh 3 as far as like games that are very, because I think it can be easy, especially like for me, I've recommended my friends to just play Nioh 2 instead of playing Nioh 1, because I think Nioh 1 has some problems and Nioh 2 really is just a better version of that game. And there's so much to dig in with Nioh 2 that, like, yeah, you could go play Nioh 1, but you're kind of just like, it's like deferred gratification. You're like, I'm just going to push off the really good shit until later. And I think we're not going to have, like, I would still recommend that people play Nioh 2, but also play Nioh 3. Like, they're going to be different games. I think they're going to have different, not necessarily different skills that they require, but I think it's going to be different enough as far as like what the game is asking you to do, then it's not going to feel like, oh man, you know, I just played 300 hours of Nioh 2. I'm going to fire up Nioh 3 and be like, oh, I'm just playing the same game. Like, you're going to be really surprised by how different the combat loop is, how many different tools you have, how things have changed, what things are the same, you know? Anyways, yeah, this video was supposed to be 10 minutes long. Jesus Christ. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. And like I said, be on the lookout for another video in the next like 4 or 5 days.